All right, you guys, happy Monday, I think. I mean, obviously, the big news over the weekend was that on Saturday night, we bombed 2 weeks to decide whether or not America was going to get involved in this war. President Bibi Netanyahu said, you know what, actually, we don't want to wait. And then so Trump took 7 stealth bombers over to Iran. And he did this so that we could have peace, allegedly. We're going to talk about that. Also, Rabbi Dave Portnoy, the founder of Barstool Sports, who recently screamed at his employee because apparently jokes can cause the next Holocaust. Yeah, well, he is now claiming that I'm the lunatic because I don't think that American troops should go die for Israel. And so I want to make sure that I don't mince words here in terms of what I actually think about our involvement with Israel. So welcome back to Candace. So much that I want to say, so much that I have said over X. It's been an absolute war zone, all of these IDF bots, because, of course, they always accuse you of what they're doing. They released this report and, Iran has tons of bots on the internet. Yet all the bots are supporting Israel and telling us that we have to go to war. And this weekend was just insane. Honestly, I feel like we're watching a show. I really do believe that we're watching a show. I think the CIA thinks we're so stupid. Like I said before, 9/11, Generation 9/11, we've grown up and we know this script. We've seen this show and we know how it's going to end. And they just spent so much time gaslighting us. Like the moment that Matthew Crooks, the scrawny looking white boy from Pennsylvania, got on that roof and attempted to murder Donald Trump, attempted to assassinate Donald Trump. OK, and the deep state came out with a narrative that he was somehow linked with Iran. That kid, Matthew Crooks, linked with Iran. I said, OK, we're going to war with Iran. That's it. You got to have the false flag. And they let you know that is the new enemy. And we said, no, calm down. They said, calm down, you conspiracy theorists. That's not true. War with Iran. And then when Bibi Netanyahu decided to strike Iran, yeah, that was it. It was over. Our troops are going to be involved immediately, we said. And they said, that is absolutely not false. We're not getting involved in that conflict. The favorite thing that they always say is Israel can defend itself. Israel can defend itself. It just never does. That's the only thing. It never does because it actually can't, which begs the question that if you're a nation and you can't defend yourself, are you even a nation? If you have to rely on the might of another nation, on the tax dollars of another nation, why do you even qualify as being a nation? If might makes right. That's a question that we can ask another day. Anyways, the point is that on Friday, we were told definitively by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt that Trump was going to take this 2-week pause. Everybody calm down. Don't be crazy. We're going to be rational about this. Take a listen.
I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks. That's a quote directly from the president for all of you today.
So that's what we were told. And by the way, just for those of you that are in the chat saying that you can't hear, just hit refresh button on the YouTube and the audio should come in clearly for you. Anyways, that's what we were told on Friday. And then literally one day later, we bombed Iran. I'm not kidding. It was one day later. Oh, everybody settled down. We're going to think. And this is directly from the president. And then we got this directly from the president on Truth Social. He wrote, we have completed our very successful attack on the 3 nuclear sites in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Esfahan. All planes are now outside of Iranian airspace. A full payload of bombs was dropped on the primary site, Fordo. All planes are safely on their way home. Congratulations to our great American warriors. There is not another military in the world that could have done this. Now is the time for peace. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now is the time for peace. That's what I mean, obviously, that is usually, if I'm trying to achieve peace, dropping bombs on people is usually the way to go. It's like, beat them to a pulp and then call for peace because that makes so much sense. That's ridiculous, obviously. And immediately MAGA began to revolt, because what were all of these promises? No new wars, we said, right? No new wars was one of the early campaign promises dating back to 2015, when people jumped onto the Trump train. It was because there was this vision of the forgotten man. We're so tired of being involved in these never ending wars, being told that we're spreading democracy, and then only to come back and find that our country is in a steep decline. Okay. So we're immediately going, we've got whiplash, because yesterday was Friday and you said you're going to take a little pause and think. And then the Israeli media starts reporting that Bibi Netanyahu got on the phone and was like, no, there's a president. And then there's like the ultra president, Bibi Netanyahu. We want you to hit him now. And so Trump did it. He hit him now. Again, that's according to reports in Israel. That's why he committed this whiplash. Okay. Trump then gives a speech about these strikes, and there was something that struck me about the speech. I want to see if you catch it. Take a listen to Trump addressing the nation.
A short time ago, the U.S. military carried out massive precision strikes on the 3 key nuclear facilities in the Iranian regime: Fordow, Natanz, and Esfahan. Everybody heard those names for years as they built this horribly destructive enterprise. Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier. For 40 years, Iran has been saying death to America, death to Israel. They have been killing our people, blowing off their arms, blowing off their legs with roadside bombs. That was their specialty. We lost over 1,000 people, and hundreds of thousands throughout the Middle East and around the world have died as a direct result of their hate. In particular, so many were killed by their general, Qasem Soleimani. I decided a long time ago that I would not let this happen. It will not continue. I want to thank and congratulate Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. We worked as a team like perhaps no team has ever worked before. And we've gone a long way to erasing this horrible threat to Israel. I want to thank the Israeli military for the wonderful job they've done. And most importantly, I want to congratulate the great American patriots who flew those magnificent machines tonight, and all of the United States military on an operation the likes of which the world has not seen in many, many decades. Hopefully, we will no longer need their services in this capacity. I hope that's so. I also want to congratulate.
Okay, so after giving this speech justifying the strikes, he then goes on and he says that he would like to thank and congratulate Bibi Netanyahu. That's who he thanked and congratulated first. What he was thanking him for, what he was congratulating him for. I'm still a little iffy on the details. If you've got something, please drop it into the chat, like why we're congratulating Bibi Netanyahu, what for getting us involved in another regional conflicts. Who knows? Maybe the beginning of World War III. Who knows? Why are we thanking and congratulating him? And then he goes on to thank the IDF. And then lastly, but most importantly, he gets around to the American troops who flew those planes. That's the lastly, but also most importantly. I feel like if they were the most important, you would have maybe thanked them before Bibi Netanyahu. And this really gets to the crux of the debate that we are having right now. Because why is MAGA divided? Because this is not what MAGA was supposed to be. Okay. MAGA is not just whatever Trump says. Now, even if it completely conflicts with what Trump said yesterday, the divide is very clear that it is Israel first versus America first. Okay. And the way that you know that we have been completely infiltrated as a movement by Israel firsters, okay, is because the literal never Trump movement from 2015, the neocons, the warhawks who put their faces on the cover of whatever they need to put their faces on the cover of to say to Americans, I'm a conservative, but even I agree that it's better that Hillary Clinton is president rather than having Adolf Hitler, right? These were the conservatives, we call them neocons, who did everything they could, everything, okay, to help get Hillary Clinton elected, because Hillary Clinton is a part of the war class family. We're not left and right anymore, okay? We are war hawks versus everybody else, the war hawks who benefit from nonstop wars. That's why we have the Bushes, the Clintons, the McCains, the McCain family being like chief neocon on the right, and everybody else who are looking around America and going, okay, actually, everything is in decline. There's nothing that has gotten better since 9/11. This country is filled with criminality. We can't even get our streets paved, right? The cities all look dilapidated. Our taxes are going over. What's happening here? Okay. And if you needed a marker of just how insane the class of war hawks are, I'm not kidding. I think these people are insane. They were elated by the Trump announcement. So let me make something very clear. Even if you are a person who believes that we need to get involved in the Middle East perpetually forever, okay? Even if you are a person who goes, I believe the deep state propaganda and there is always an imminent threat in the Middle East, okay? You would not be cheering when bombs drop. That's something else, right? If I said, okay, well, we drop bombs, you'll go, yes, I'm so excited. Oh, I love you. I love you, baby. And this is not me acting. That is actually what Meghan McCain, John McCain's daughter, and her husband, Ben Dominic, did. They were tweeting and they got so happy and elated that she tweeted to him that she loved him. This is a real tweet from when we're finding out that Iran's been bombed. Okay. Can you pull up? So Ben Dominic, who's hated every bit of Trump in the MAGA movement, wrote, 4 years ago, I was told to my face that my marriage had made me too neocon and anti-Trump. But today, those same people are bitching impotently. And I think this president effing rocks. So I spent all of this time hating Trump. I now think he rocks because he's dropping bombs. Yeah. And Meghan McCain gets so overwhelmed with excitement about these bombs being dropped, which have justified their Trump hatred because now Trump sees it their way. She tweets, love you, babe. Bombs are dropping. Love you, babe. I don't even know what's happening. We don't know if we're going to worthy, but like, this is what we do because, I mean, I'm a McCain, right? I know our trusted counsel. They're getting topped up if we go to war, and we're looking like we're going to war. Actually, if you can do me a favor, Skylar, pull up the Never Trumpers. It has like a Wikipedia page. We just go through these people. Go try to find any one of them who were not in a state of elation when they learned that we were potentially being dragged into a war. There was not even like, this is a tough decision for the president, but like, you know, the right decision. It was like, giddy, 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 we win. Oh my gosh, yay, more war. I love it so much. By individual, I think it's towards the bottom. Yeah, that, by the way, definitively one individual who was absolute besties with John McCain, Lindsey Graham. Of course, he has been saying bomb Iran for seemingly decades, just like bomb Iran. Every time you see him on TV, he's speaking about how we need to keep bombing the Middle East. But I think it's more towards the bottom. But like, these are all them. There's like a full list at the bottom. Never Trumpers. You got Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney. Here we go. Joe Scarborough, Joe Walsh, Max Boot. Go down. Former Never Trumpers. You've got J.D. Vance, Lindsey Graham. I mean, the list goes on. These people were elated. And then they started screaming at us. They started demanding that Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon, okay, get just kicked out of MAGA because this is real MAGA. Real MAGA understands that John Bolton and Meghan McCain and Liz Cheney, by golly, this has to happen. And so we got to eject the Tucker Carlsons, the Candace Owenses, and the Steve Bannons of the world. Steve Bannon, who quite literally went to prison to have Donald Trump's back. That's Steve Bannon. He's got to go because he's been speaking cautiously. He's been saying, if Trump does this, he's going to have to explain to the base why he's doing that, because the base is not for war, especially these Gen Zers. These people are not for war. So they're going, you're a traitor. You are a traitor. The people that really love Trump, the people who understand that he's got to just drop a payload of bombs and not even think about the consequences, right? That's where we're at right now. And like I said, some people were being cautious and the neocon celebrating. I actually love that Steve Bannon fully called out Mark Levin, who's one of these people, is just a mania. He was just so elated by this moment. Scott, do you have that clip of Steve Bannon speaking about Mark Levin? Let's roll that.
That's been positive. For those in the audience, Mark Levin has something up on Twitter tonight. I think, let's just speak for itself. It's so revolting and disgusting, particularly somebody who's never served his country and is not a veteran. His use of language is so inappropriate for someone who's too gutless to serve his nation, right? What he does in trying to smear people about their patriotism and their love of country and their commitment to this nation. Like I said, I think he and I think many people at Fox and the whole network and the Murdoch should be put under investigation as under FAR investigations as basically agents for a foreign government. I think it's quite clear that he's not pitching this in the interests of the United States of America or American citizens, and particularly those in harm's way, right? Since he's never been in harm's way, and I don't think any of his children have been in harm's way, right? It's not a very patriot. His love of country and patriotism is just as solid as his being MAGA, which, you know, he was one of the most vicious voices of President Trump when we ran in 2016, and then in 2021, he's one of the first people to bail, with all the people at Fox taking paychecks from Rupert Murdoch, who bailed to go to DeSimp and Nikki Haley and that whole crew of neoliberal neocons. President Trump is quite different, and President Trump is returning to the White House, going to get a briefing by his National Security Council on the situation, and we'll see how this develops tonight.
Okay, so just want to say, shocking levels of anti-Semitism, at least according to the new definition. Remember, Congress is passing through that new definition of anti-Semitism, which is going to include accusing people, curiously, of being more Israel first, caring more about Israel's interests than America's interests. And you're only going to get that passed because it's true. These people exist. And yes, Mark Levin is one of these people. And it is revolting and it is disgusting that these people are so obvious that their allegiance is to Israel, but they won't get up and go move there because they're a part of some infiltration where they're supposed to influence us to keep getting on board with interests that only serve Israel in the end. Okay. So you get this, you get Tucker Carlson, who has been trying to just show America the record of us getting involved in the Middle East. It's not very hard to see that we don't win. Israel wins, we don't win. And all of a sudden you had all these bots and these neocons screaming at people like Steve Bannon and Tucker Carlson, making the point that first and foremost, we were all being conspiracy theorists. I should say that. This was going to be just like striking Soleimani, they said. Yeah, they're just going to get in there and get out. It's going to be the assassination of just one person, even though this time we dropped at least 100,000 pounds of bombs onto Iran, right, onto their nuclear sites. And that's somehow how we get peace. Everyone knows if you want to get peace, you got to drop at least 100,000 pounds of bombs. And that they said it was going to be the end of it. And the rest of us were just being conspiracy theorists when we said, no, that's not going to be the end of it, because obviously what's going to come next is it's not going to be enough for Israel. They're going to demand a regime change because they're going to want to install their puppet president so that they can control the region. Like, obviously, this is not going to be the end of it. It never is the end of it. And we got screamed at for about 24 hours. And J.D. Vance went on to the news and everybody calmed down. Trump doesn't want a regime change. And I don't know if Trump just hates J.D. Vance and he couldn't wait 48 hours to tweet the regime change tweet. But it came out. Like, hey, Scott, you got to find this. Where then suddenly Trump's like, you know what? Regime change. Yeah, that's on the menu. And we just couldn't believe it because it's happening so quickly. Like, we're used to being strung along on the propagandist BS. I think it takes a little longer, but now it's just instant. Like, they're instantly proving the conspiracy theorists correct about everything that we say. And so can you find that? Can you pull up that Trump tweet? Oh, he writes, it's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA. And that's not amiga. That's just MIGA, which I think personally stands for make Israel great again. I think that's what we're getting at here. People have been long saying MAGA became MIGA. I think that's what he meant at the end of it, but I guess he's trying to imply it's Iran. And why the hell would it be our responsibility to make Iran great again? No, seriously, think about that. Now they're hitting us with propaganda. that, like, don't you know how terrible it is to live in Iran? Don't you know that the people of Iran want to have like a natural uprising so that they can overthrow this terrible government? Like, isn't it our responsibility to get involved there? And more hilariously, I'm not kidding, because we know what's coming next. Stick with me, stick with the conspiracy theorists. When we asked that question a couple of episodes ago about what was going to happen, was he going to do a false flag? Was it going to be this? It's very clear the false flag is coming, because next day after Trump said this about the regime change, they suddenly informed us that Iran had sleeper cells in the United States. And that, I guess, I don't know, they phoned up Trump and told him that they had sleeper cells. That's how they know this information. I'm not kidding. You got to find this article. I think it was the main page of the Daily Mail, that Iran has sleeper cells in the United States. So a terrorist attack is likely to happen if you believe the deep state, guys. I mean, listen, I know they had Operation Mockingbird and that they had their journalists go out and write these articles to control the population to believe their narratives. And they typically are able to guess right before a terrorist attack happens. Usually the person who's going to commit the terrorist attack, in this case Iran, just calls you up and says, hey, just so you know, I've got sleeper cells in the United States of America. Yeah, and we're going to, here we go. Iran threatened Trump. I'm sorry to laugh because it's so obvious, with sleeper cell revenge terrorist attacks inside the U.S. days before the nuclear strikes. Yeah, they just called him up and said that, because the best way to execute a surprise attack is to phone up your homies and let them know you're going to do it. Yeah. And so now it's don't you guys understand that we need to spread democracy? Do you know how they live in Iran? They're even passing around photos like online just to understand like how intense these IDF bots are, of like a woman in Iran. No one knows who she is. No one knows the backstory. But they're like, she was attacked with acid. And that's what life is like if you live in Iran. If you show your hair, they're contemplating the hair thing. If you show your hair, someone can throw acid on you. And isn't that terrible, America? Don't you want to get involved in this war? I just did Piers Morgan this morning. Episode not out yet. And the conversation that I had with him was really incredible. I suspect it's going to go pretty viral, because he asked me that very question. He wanted to know why, or if I would support a regime change. Like, if the government is so awful, why not get behind it? And I said, look, if I'm going to support a regime change for an awful government, it's going to be Israel. Okay, it is going to be a regime change in Israel, because that tends to be the government in the Middle East that is imparting terror on the world that actually impacts my American life, impacts my tax dollars. What have you given them? $150 billion. They've taken weapons from us. They're hiding their nuclear weapons, pretending that they don't have them. They've stolen our technology. They're running a sophisticated blackmail ring so that all of our politicians just oblige them. And yeah, so if we're going to do it, like if we're going to do the thing and we're going to say we're not going to be isolationists, maybe we should go after Israel. Okay. I mean, he was freaking out, and this was the real tell. Freaking out. And we'll get to this with Dave Portnoy about a clip on my show where we talked about why would American troops sign up for this? Like, should they just leave the military? Freaked out. The Zionists were losing their mind over this. We're going to talk about why when we get to Dave Portnoy. But then I asked Piers Morgan, you're going to love this. I asked him to name one good thing that Zionism has brought to my country. That's a very easy question. If it's like, we just got to keep doing this, we got to keep doing the Bibi Netanyahu thing, Bibi Netanyahu dance, Bibi Netanyahu just keeps telling us that, you know, if we don't get involved in a war, it's going to be really terrible for us. You should be able to at least name a couple of good things that Zionism has brought to America. I mean, do you have a clip, by the way, Skylar, of Bibi Netanyahu just listing every war that we should get involved in? Yeah, let's run that.
If you take away the Soviet Union and its chief proxy, the PLO, international terrorism would collapse. If you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. Obviously, we'd like to see a regime change, at least I would, in Iran, just as I would like to see in Iraq. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out? It's not a question of whether you'd like to see a regime change in Iran, but how to...
Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
The answer is categorically yes. The two nations that are vying, competing with each other, who will be the first to achieve nuclear weapons, is Iraq and Iran. But a third nation, by the way, is Libya as well. Libya is trying very rapidly to build an atomic bomb capability. So you have here now three nations.
All stand together to stop Iran's march of conquest, subjugation, and terror.
Beautiful. Beautiful. We can come out of this. That is just... Thank you, Bibi, for telling us again that American sons and daughters must die overseas because of weapons of mass destruction that we just never seem to find. They're already trying to edit history. Like, you've got wacky people like Laura Loomer saying that Trump just saved us from a nuclear holocaust. They didn't have nukes. No one anywhere has said that they had nukes. So at least in Iraq, they pretended they had them. They're like, no, they've got weapons of mass destruction right now, and we've got to invade. Okay? This time, they're like, well, they could maybe make them. They can maybe make them. So we've got to invade. So now it's like we're dialing it back a little bit to just, well, you know, whatever. They're enriching uranium, and that's used, and it's a lot of level. They're enriching it very quickly. By the way, Israel has them, and they're not our friend or our ally. We're going to get to that in a little bit. But Iran, definitely problematic. So yeah, going back to that question I asked Piers Morgan, I said, it should be pretty simple. What has Zionism done for America? I could name tons of things we've done for Israel. What have we gotten back for this belief that we must serve Israel? And he basically was like, well, you get to be the country that helps Israel. Just soak that in, guys. Soak it in right here. Ready? Just soak it. Let's just all, whew. What we get for billions of dollars, weaponry, our sons and daughters dying overseas while our nation is in decline, is that we get to feel good. Like, real good. Like, you know what? Everything's gone to shit, but I feel fantastic. Don't you? I feel like people are not feeling fantastic in the chat. That's weird. So I told him, just off the top of my head, I can tell you I actually can name some things that we have received thanks to the Zionists in this country. First and foremost, an open border. And I am not kidding when I say that I so deeply appreciate the investigative work which was done by none other than Laura Loomer when she went down to the border recently, I think it was last year, to figure out what organization, right, was handing out packets and step-by-step instructions to help get these refugees across the border in America, like telling them, drop your IDs, then go here, then do this, then do this. Welcome to America, millions of illegals from all over the world. And she discovered that it was an organization, HIAS, and she was quite shocked by this. HIAS, which stands for, I gotta look this up. I think it's Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. She was shocked by this. And thankfully, in case you're starting to think that there's some Jewish conspiracy that the open borders are due to Jews, let's let Bari Weiss take that question away. She's going to respond to that very thoroughly. Bari Weiss, is that, that Jewish conspiracy, that would be crazy, right? Take a listen.
Well, that's the thing. The Jewish connection to the refugee is not a conspiracy. That's something that we're very, very proud of. The organization that Robert Bowers was constantly calling out is an organization called HIAS, which brought people, including Sergey Brin, to this country. It started in the 1880s to bring Jews who were fleeing the pogroms of Eastern Europe. Now they help Jews and non-Jews all over the world fleeing persecution. I met a man in Arizona on Sunday, a Jew from Cairo, who was helped out of Egypt following the 1967 war. This synagogue exemplified those values. It participated in something called Refugee Shabbat. The previous Saturday, it was one of the participating synagogues nationally. And the concept, as in all Jewish synagogues that reflect the most sacred of Jewish values, is the value of Hachnasat Orchim, of welcoming the stranger, and especially of welcoming the weakest in our community, which there's no weaker category in our society than the refugee. And we're really, really proud of that.
Okay, we can come out of that. we're just being blessed. Oh my God, it's crazy. I didn't even know. It's not even a conspiracy. They're proud of it. They're proud of it. We're being blessed. And where are all these refugees coming from? Let me connect the dots for you guys, because it's hilarious to me to hear the boomer class who, as a rule, as Bannon says, he's like, I'm a boomer. As a rule, they love wars, right? And then they go, what is happening to this country? This is also in the UK. We need to have these wars. And they go, where are all these refugees coming from? If you stop supporting Israel when they blow up these countries, there won't be these refugees, okay? You can't hold both of these concepts. You can't say that on the one hand, we just have to keep blessing ourselves by cursing our countries and getting behind everything Bibi Netanyahu wants, and then complain when he dumps his refugees at our doors. Because, of course, their country, ethnocentric, you gotta be, Jewish to live here. Our countries, oh my God, open your doors for these blessings. We're proud of this. That's amazing. And so, yeah, what do we get from these Zionists like Bari Weiss, who has essentially laid down her political life, laid down her writings to convince Americans to be a part of this infiltration operation, to convince Americans that every war is justified, that every war is a requirement as your allegiance. Yeah. What do we get for all of this? Well, we get more. We get to invade Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, Iran. We get to do what Bibi wants, what Bibi gets. And we're told again that Israel can defend itself, which is why we currently have 2,000 troops stationed in Syria after Israel expanded its borders again, waited for Syria to collapse, funded the collapse, funded the terrorist groups that were al-Qaeda adjacent, right? Because they can fund terrorism. They funded Hamas. They funded, al-Qaeda adjacent. And then when they're like, oopsie, we did it again. We collapsed another regime. Our boys better get over there, right? Our boys got to get over there. Oh, gosh, we did it. We've been going after Assad as he was protecting those Christians by funding terrorists. And now we're going to need those American troops. And I love the BS of like some of these people who are like, well, they didn't have boots on the ground. The IDF wasn't involved in Afghanistan, so you can't blame Israel for that one. Okay, let me just make something perfectly clear. As I said to Piers Morgan, which will come out later, everyone knows what our boys were doing out there in Afghanistan. So if you think we lost the war in Afghanistan, you just didn't know what we were fighting for. They were sent out there to guard poppy fields, okay? Poppy fields. What comes from the poppy flower? Do you guys know? Okay. Do you know what happened after we lost in Afghanistan? The opioid crisis was hitting America during that, while we were guarding those poppy fields from which, you guessed it, that's what you need them to build opioids. The opioid crisis hit America hard via the Sackler family. And what did the Sackler family contribute to Tel Aviv? Yeah, their school of medicine. Yeah. So we are just so blessed. Again, we were so blessed that we got to guard those poppy fields. For who? Nobody knows, but we do know that we did get an opioid crisis on the heels of it. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a serious question. Why do you support Israel? All right, you guys, so many blessings. And I asked you a question. I said, why do you support Israel? Like literally why? I don't care what you are in the chat right now, okay? If you're Black, Hispanic, you speak a little Espanol, if you're Muslim, if you're Jew, if you're Hindu, I don't care. Answer that for me. Why actually do you support Israel? You got to kind of reflect on yourself sometime. Where did this come from? This need to support Israel. And just speaking from my own experience, the more that I engage in this topic, the more I realize that Zionists kind of behave in a very aggressive, psychopathic way. And maybe these are the radical ones. Maybe there are some sensible ones out there. And obviously, I have been through the ringer in the last year of them trying to cancel my entire life because I didn't support Israel, taking me out of context, lying about what I'm going to say. And I will say it is stunning how much they have to lie to sustain their movement. Meaning, you just say Candace is funded by Qatar. You just say Tucker Carlson is funded by Qatar. You just make up stuff about Steve Bannon. You're like, I don't like you, so I'm just going to make stuff up and smear you and libel you because we can get away with it. That's not exactly an ideology that I can get behind, because if it requires lies to convince me that I should support you, then I probably shouldn't be supporting it in the first place. And sometimes you see the emotional manipulation of it all. And I'm going to throw this to Dave Portnoy, who has now come out and called me a lunatic because, they got to do the Freudian thing. They always accuse you of being crazy. And yet I've never seen people behave more psychopathically than like people who like shed a tear of happiness when bombs are dropped. And Portnoy did not even wait like 3 weeks from his last lunatic scandal, of course, because he can't see himself or something. And he suffers from not being able to reflect on his own behavior, perhaps. But yeah, this is like Dave Portnoy a couple of weeks ago acting like a psychopath because his employee thinks that jokes are okay. And he has decided that, nope, you cannot call him Rabbi Dave Portnoy or Jews are going to die everywhere or something. Dave Portnoy, just tell people in your own words.
Kirk, if you just want me to kick him out, not mention it, not care that this kid is anti-Semitic, shut up. If you just want me to ignore it.
Don't tell me to shut up. Don't tell me.
Shut the f*** up, you bald f***.
Okay, go ahead.
How's that?
Oh, it's kill. I'll never recover from that, Dave. Go ahead, continue. I'll never recover.
Well, you're the one who big boss man, don't tell. I'll tell you work for me.
Okay, go ahead, continue.
You little bitch, you work for me.
Sure, you bet. For now,
oh, you
continue.
Don't? For now, quit. I don't care.
Is this show or not a show? Like, is this a show or not a show? Like, we can't have a conversation?
You're an idiot.
Okay, continue.
You're literally saying people should be allowed to make Jew jokes, say whatever they want right now. That's
yes, I think people should be allowed to make jokes.
So how many Jews have to be killed before you stop?
How many? Answer the question. How many have to die so he can win this argument, which is that nobody should be able to call him Rabbi Dave Portnoy? Which I feel like now, like, obviously, if you see him, you should always call him, like, anybody who sees Dave Portnoy, you got to call him Rabbi Portnoy, because that's now just obviously funny. And it couldn't be made more funny by the fact that he's having this meltdown. But he's not a lunatic, guys. He's, like, totally stable. Like, I will say this about the Zionists. They're not sending us their best. Like Mark Levin, it's like they don't have a feeling when it comes to other people. They just want to get their way, okay? Why does any person support Israel today? Okay, I think the answer is you support Israel for one of two reasons. The first being Holocaust guilt. Holocaust guilt. We were just baptized in this pseudo-religion of Holocaust guilt. It had nothing to do with us, but they made sure that systematically we learned this at school, right? We had to learn about the Holocaust, even though it is a fact that Henry Kagoda was way more of a psychopath, that he killed more Christians. This was happening at the exact same time, okay? What the Soviets and the Bolsheviks were doing, all happening in the same time period. We don't learn about that because that's not what's being reflected in the movies in Hollywood. It's all about the Holocaust. So you grew up, and when your brain was being developed, because this is Soviet education, they understand that it has to happen when you're young and your brain's being developed. You were taught that no matter what, effectively, Jews can do no wrong. And if you notice a Jewish person doing something wrong, then you are essentially guilty of maybe creating the next Holocaust. Case in point, tell a joke, call him Rabbi Portnoy. Well, that's it. Didn't you see Life is Beautiful? How could you call him Rabbi Portnoy? Don't you understand what your rhetoric is causing when you say Rabbi Portnoy? Yeah, you gotta educate yourself. That's number one reason I think that most people feel guilt. And what's crazy about that is we had nothing to do with it. A, B, there were worse things that were happening. And C, we're not even allowed to speak about the Holocaust. Imagine being so powerful. You execute this training for every child growing up in America, and it's coming more. They just passed another, I believe, in Congress. They passed, and you can fact check this, Skylar, but they passed a bill that every student in America would also have to learn about October 7th. Didn't happen on our soil, but every student is going to have to learn about October 7th. This is part of that indoctrination that's taking place, okay? So you have been indoctrinated in your youth to believe that it's somehow more weighted if it happens to a Jewish person that you could be guilty of a Holocaust. And so you support that. And effectively at the same time they did that, they also, via a sleight of hand, made it so that you can't even ask a question about the Holocaust. Because as you get older, you get out of school and you start learning that, okay, you were told a ton of things about the Holocaust, but there were tons of things that you weren't told about the Holocaust. Like, I think the thing that shocked me the most that I never learned, and please in the chat, let me know if you did, was about the Havara Agreement. Like, that's confusing, right? At a bare minimum, can we all agree that not learning about the Havara Agreement is weird? Skylar, can you pull this up? The Havara Agreement? I mean, what? We didn't even learn about it because then maybe you would ask another question. that they don't want you asking. And this is why the new radical Zionist pitch is, you're not just asking questions. Don't ask any questions. Don't, just remember what you learned in public school, and that's it. Can you pull this up on Wikipedia? We're going to get this up for you. The Havara Agreement. The Havara Agreement is the transfer agreement. It was an agreement between Nazi Germany and Zionist organizations that was signed on the 25th of August of 1933, when Hitler was in power. Okay? They signed an agreement with the Nazis. The agreement was finalized after 3 months of talks by the Zionist Federation of Germany, the Anglo-Palestine Bank, under the directive of the Jewish Agency, and the economic authorities of Nazi Germany. It was a major factor in making it possible for people to migrate approximately 60,000 German Jews to Palestine between 1933 and 1939. That's during wartime, right? So, of course, you naturally would go, okay, and this is why I didn't learn this in school. Maybe you did. Did you guys learn it? Did you learn it? I'm going to check the chat. You naturally go, okay, so some were being legally transferred to be allowed to resettle in Palestine while the rest of them were being killed. Like, how did they decide who? But no. Stop that right now, because you would be guilty of the next Holocaust if you asked a question. So don't ask questions. You're not just asking questions. It's number one reason that you support it. Second reason would be because of a theological crime scene, because you are a person who, like Ted Cruz, was taught in Sunday school that your Bible tells you that you'll be blessed if you support this country that is currently executing a Holocaust in broad daylight, that has executed a very thorough blackmail scheme in the United States to maintain its power, that is responsible and protecting pedophiles. We can't get our pedophiles back, but we better send them $150 million. Yeah, that would be another reason that I think so many people get behind Israel, because again, you're young, your brain is being developed. That is the time the Soviets understood this, that it was important while kids' brains were developing to feed them things. And this is one of the things that they were fed in Sunday school, as Ted Cruz says. If you are one of these people, I beg of you to please truly try to get to the root of why those pastors are telling you that. Get into the history of the Schofield Bible. Get into the history of when this became a thing and how before Israel became a nation, the Zionist lobby got behind these efforts to convince you that this was real. I mean, and for those of you that are wondering what it is, like, what is dispensationalism? What do they believe? Dr. Taylor Marshall, who is a Catholic like me, did an amazing job going through this modern theology, just tackling it. And it was unintentionally funny how absurd it is that people believe that they had to break apart from the Catholic Church because of indulgences, right? That's what we learned in school. The Catholic Church was saying, give them this and you will get a spot in heaven. But then you have this section of Protestants who believe in the ultimate indulgence. God is going to bless me. I'm going to be blessed if I do whatever Bibi Netanyahu says. Make that make sense. Take a listen to Dr. Taylor Marshall breaking down, and this is only in part, you should go pursue this episode in its entirety, but just kind of crushing that argument. Take a listen.
That's in the Bible. As a Christian, I believe that.
Where is that?
I can find it to you. I don't have the scripture off the tip of my...
So if you're going to vote for wars and you're going to give millions and billions of dollars to Israel, and it's all based on what you learned in Sunday school, where Ted Cruz says, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed, you think you might want to know the verse.
We are commanded as Christians to support the government of Israel?
We are commanded to support Israel. And what
does that mean, Israel?
We're told those who bless Israel will be blessed.
But hold on, define Israel. This is important.
Okay, so here we're going to pause. All right, he says the Bible says if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. So it's from Genesis, the verse he's referring to. I'm going to pull it up on the screen. I prepped it ahead of time. There it is over my left shoulder. And I will make of thee a great nation. He's talking to Abraham. I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and magnify thy name, and thou shalt be blessed. I will bless them that bless thee, and curse them that curse thee. And in thee shall all the kindred of the earth be blessed. End quote. Genesis chapter 12. Notice it does not say bless Israel. The word Israel is not in the verse that Ted Cruz and the dispensationalists are trying to use to get us into a war based on faulty theology. It does not say, if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. It says, I will bless them that bless thee. That's singular. He's talking to Abraham.
And beyond that, my husband pointed out something to me that's even more absurd. So that verse, did he say it was Genesis chapter 12? That comes before, just so you understand, Genesis chapter 12 was when that verse is. Jacob is not even yet introduced in the Bible. Because Jacob it receives the name Israel from God. Okay, so Jacob is Israel. Israel is Jacob. Doesn't even come in. It's out of order. So it's Abraham first, and then Israel, then Jacob. This is before Jacob in the Bible. So this argument is a nonsense, a well-funded nonsense. Okay, and in large part, I do believe that all of the smears and the lies that I endured and believed about the Catholic Church, which even take place in school, like you're lied to about the Spanish Inquisition, you're lied to about everything. I think it is because Pope Pius X, okay, when Theodore Herzl came around and said, hey, we're just going to like take over space and create the modern state of Israel, told them to kick rocks. Okay, maybe he didn't exactly say kick rocks, but he told them no. Okay, he told the Zionist movement, no, that actually is not okay. And you can't just do that. And I truly believe that they have held on to that. And there's a reason that there are so many lies that are spewed about the Catholic Church. I don't want to get onto this long theological rant, but I want to tell you to go watch that episode. If you are one of the individuals who is being moved to support Israel because you believe that your Bible instructs you to, you better get into that episode, Dr. Taylor Marshall, and park aside what you think you know about the Catholic Church, because it's not true. What you think you know about the Catholic Church is simply not true. The last thing that I want to say is, if you are not falling into those two categories, and I don't know, maybe you're an atheist, you don't even know why you support Israel, I would hope that by now you have the moral compass somewhere in you to know that you cannot support what they are doing to the Palestinians, that everything that you're being told about what happens in the Middle East is happening in Israel. And this is, by the way, if you're following Israeli news, they are telling you it is an ethnic cleansing, okay? You don't have to imagine this. The information is right there. Go onto your X feed. Look at the photos. I mean, Skylar, do you have, okay, look at this. Look at the before and after of Gaza. Those were all buildings, and they just wiped it all out, okay? And they're talking about building and settling. They're sending settlers into there. Okay, this is a planned annihilation. So when you say you are supporting Israel, you are supporting a planned genocide, a planned annihilation, because Miriam Adelson gave Trump a $100 million check, and she told him that she wanted to annex the West Bank too. Okay, this is imperialism being sold to you as something godly. It is despicable. Please save your souls. I'm begging you. I am begging you to recognize this truth and to develop some courage. And shame on all of the men out there, the commentators who are taking money from Israel in one way or the other, or taking money from Zionists one way or the other, and are too, scared to come right out and call this what this is, meaning that you would even let your children grow up in this nightmare scenario, potentially being drafted into another war by demons. Truly, I think, I want to be clear, I think Bibi Netanyahu is a demon. They tried to do the emotional conditioning to me. It's like, oh, okay, so are you saying he's Adolf Hitler? Don't you know? How dare you mention Adolf Hitler? No. We're not doing that anymore. Okay. Your social engineering Adolf Hitler project is done. We see what is happening in Gaza. We understand what the IDF army is. They are literally in the press in Israel calling it the Hunger Games, okay? Because as these kids and adults run trying to get food because they're starving them, okay, and the trucks show up and they run, they just decide who they're going to shoot. That is a reality that is taking place every single day in Gaza. While your politicians try to tell you it's your biblical duty to support these monsters. It's not. It's not your moral duty, your biblical duty. And if you have any sense whatsoever, you will stand up to this nation. Okay. Josh Owens. Oh, wow. We've got 62,000 of you guys watching live. Gosh, I'm going to be in so much trouble from the radical Zionists. I'm so scared. I'm really scared because, like Laura Loomer, she gave me a nickname. She said I'm Tehran Candy. I don't know how I'm ever going to survive that one. the kids at school are bullying me. The cool kids, the Zionists are bullying me, and they're going to, call me Tehran Candy everywhere. So scary. Allie writes, the thumbnail for this video made me seriously LOL. Your sense of humor is sage level. Thanks for always knowing how and when to bring enough levity into the convo to keep us from falling into despair as we seek to stay informed. Take the white pill, Allie. I am never despaired. I promise you. In the end, we win. Like, Christ wins. Like, truth is going to win in the end. Okay? The way, the truth, and the life. Mikey Mike writes, this was not supposed to go down like this. Even if World War III doesn't happen, the economy is going to feel it in their pockets big time. Yeah, it's like, what are we even arguing about? Like I said, they're like stringing us along and trying to pretend we're not involved, but we're kind of involved. And it's just a nonsense because either way, Americans are going to suffer. That's it. And either, if you want to be so big and bad and Bibi and throw bombs, you better be able to defend yourself when the other country begins defending themselves. And apparently they can't do that. We got to keep involving America. Buckeye Bell writes, how do you suggest you deal with family members that are outwardly pro-Israel? My dad is staunchly pro-Israel. I'm very close with him. It makes me a bit sad, but as a Christian, I can't agree with him. It's okay. I think it's something, we all have this in our family. I have people who are pro-Israel in my family, changing a lot, I will say, because Bibi Netanyahu has gone way too far. But you have to allow them to come into an awakening on their own. Like, it doesn't happen for everybody on the same day. And I've always understood that because me especially, I'm like an acquired taste. Like, people really hate me in the beginning. And then I think as more stuff comes out and they see that I've just been being honest one way or the other, they're like, okay, they warm up. But if you start demanding for people to like have that instant awakening at the moment that you did, it tends to not go over well. And I truly do. I just pray for people. I say what I have to say. I listen to them, say the truth, listen to what they believe is the truth and, kind of nod along. But, slowly but surely, hopefully the scales fall from their eyes. Ariel Anderson writes, Trump making the best decision. We are to protect Israel. Bible says it. Spiritual Israel is redeemed by the blood of Jesus, but the nation of Israel is still to be protected. Love you, Candace, but this is scripture. I love you back, but it is literally not scripture. It is not even a loose interpretation of scripture. In fact, it is anathema to scripture. God's chosen, the new Israel, the covenant. It is us. It is Christians, those who followed Christ. That is just the reality. And like I said, please spend some time watching that episode if you disagree with me. I love that you're still here. Go watch that full episode of Dr. Taylor Marshall as he just slowly rips apart the arguments and shows you what's actually in the Bible. It doesn't even say Israel in that verse, which is what's even crazier. Okay, then we have the Gen Z Compass writes, Candace, have you heard about the 200 Christians that were killed by Islamist terrorists in Nigeria? The world stays mute when such atrocities occur, but there is so much coverage of Gaza. Could you use your platform to bring light to this? Yes, we have spoken about Christians being murdered all across Africa. We've talked about what's happening in the Middle East. We could also talk about what's happening in Armenia, by the way, another refugee crisis that's happening. And Israel, of course, is supplying the arms. If you want to talk about what's happening in Congo, you've got Dan Gertler down there. You do have to wonder how they always, by the way, are controlling the trade of these things. Like Israel as a nation, where are you getting all these diamonds from? That you're just like running the diamond trade since like day one. Like, what's going on with that? I'm just interesting. Opioid crisis. Where are you getting all these poppy flowers from? And so there's larger conversations that need to be had because sometimes people don't see how all of this is connected. And I think it very much is. But I have used my platform. You can go back and check my tweets. And I've spoken about these things. The reason why people are talking about what's happening in Gaza right now is because we're watching annihilation and our tax paying dollars are quite literally funding it. So it's problematic. It's problematic. We got to talk about the Israel question repeatedly. And I'm glad to see so many people are speaking about it. But yes, Christians are being slaughtered all over the world. And I have spoken about that at length on this show. We have, I don't know how to say, I think it's the event Simonis writes, Candace, who's more lost in the wilderness? The black community that you referred to in your book Blackout or today's folks that are buying the Israel propaganda? More lost. It's all the wilderness. Deeper into the wilderness is for sure people that have bought the propaganda that like somehow Israel we're getting blessed. We're being so cursed by blessing Israel. It's crazy. Like we are cursed nation. I think if we just stop blessing Israel for a little bit, that new nation in the Middle East, that things might get better. I actually think if we don't bless them for a little bit, we might actually receive some blessings here in America. Sneck writes, can we all do what the Bible says and right now say a brief prayer for our leaders? Actually, you should, as a part of your daily routine be praying for our leaders. Like I said to Piers Morgan today, I don't wish any ill harm on Trump, of course. I'm not turned against him. I think he has turned away from his promises. I don't regret voting for him because I don't think the other option would have been better. But I'm also not in a cult. And I'm going to call this out because at the end of the day, I voted for somebody to be a leader, not a cult leader, but to be a leader of this nation and not Israel, this nation right here. And I feel that Trump is maybe losing his way and he's forgetting that. So that's all we're going to say about that. You guys, as I said, we are way over time, but 63,000 watching live is absolutely amazing. Want to encourage you guys, if you want to support my work so that I don't ever have to be funded by Qatar, and read you guys ads from Qatar, which I would just tell you I was funded by Qatar, please head over to CandaceOwens.com. You can pre-order the book, which I know I'm running a little bit late on. Pregnancy got me late in the day. I'm finally finishing the edits for Make Him a Sandwich. You can head and you can sign up and learn about the vaccine industry if you're a new parent. We have a Shot in the Dark series. You can sign up and join the book club where we get to say things that would not be appropriate to say on YouTube. We get hit pretty heavily. The book club's amazing. It's been really fun. And we continue reading Hollywood Babylon, the founding of Hollywood, tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern. Is that right, Skylar? By the way, I love your comments. I'm just always like, Skylar. We've decided that I am basically Wedding Crashers when he's like, Mom, the meatloaf. Do you have that clip, Skylar? This is me.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf! We want it now! The meatloaf!
Skylar, the clips. We need the clips now. We want it now. Love that. It's literally my favorite movie. Best comedy of all time, in my opinion. We'll see you guys tomorrow.